If you watch Adventure Time and you follow the series religiously, you would know that there is a bunch of scary and crazy powerful creatures in this cartoon. And by powerful, I'm talking about universe-breaking powerful. And one of those powerful beings is Marceline's dad, Hunson Abadeer, a demon with a pretty good-looking suit that rules the lands of the NIGHTOSPHERE, which is pretty much hell. And he is undoubtedly one of the most powerful entities in the Adventure Time universe. First of all, he has soul-sucking powers that he almost killed Finn with, and the only reason Finn survived is because Marceline herself stopped Hunson Abadeer from finishing Finn off. He has flying abilities, regeneration powers, and shape-shifting abilities, where he can turn into this massive big-headed being that I can only assume is absolutely overpowered. But what about his lore? We only get to see Hunson appear in a total of 4 episodes. The first one is where we get to see him for the first time. In the episode, It Came from the NIGHTOSPHERE, where the episode is basically about Marceline and Hunson's shaky relationship as a family, and they end up solving it and making up, but not really. You know, the typical family plotline in cartoons. But the main point is that we get to have a brief look into this super demon in front of us. We got to see how powerful he is with the powers that I mentioned before, and that's about it in this episode. In the next episode, Hunson Abadeer appears in the episode Memory of a Memory, where we get a deep dive into Marceline's past trauma. And one of those trauma is being her dad, eating her cold fries behind her back, which made her really sad, as you can see. Like really upset that she had to make a whole song dedicated to how upset she was. In the next episode, Daddy's Little Monster is where we see a little bit more depth and explanation behind Hunson Abadeer's lore. In the episode, Hunson basically was trying to get his daughter to try and follow her father's footsteps and take over the family business, which is ruling the NIGHTOSPHERE. But the episode tells us more than we first initially thought. We know that from this episode that most of Hunson's powers actually comes from this amulet that he wears. We know this because in the episode, Hunson explains that whoever wears this amulet will be filled with chaotic evil. And when Hunson takes off the amulet, he loses his monster form, along with his clothes. But most importantly, the chaotic power that comes with it. When he doesn't have the amulet, he just seems like a chill dude. Just a chill looking dude. The only thing we can assume is that the soul-sucking powers isn't connected with the amulet, since Marceline has mentioned before that the soul-sucking powers was passed down to her. And we see that she's been had these powers since she was a kid. The last episode dedicated to Hunson's appearance is episode Marcy and Hunson, but we don't really get anything new from him other than the same family dynamic between the two. The episode is about Finn's night sword, and it needs to be powered up by Hunson Abadeer. So Peppermint Butler helps by summoning Hunson Abadeer. And the plot is pretty much just changed into Marcy being forced to spend a day with Hunson to try and get along with him and solve this father-daughter relationship. And that's about it. That's all we know about him from those 4 episodes. But wait, there's actually one more appearance that we didn't talk about yet, and it's his 3-second appearance in Marcy's backstory, where he came in during the Mushroom War, breaking down everything that she owned. Look at this guy right here. But this gave us more questions than anything. So, what is Hunson Abadeer? Is he a monster? Is he a human that turned into a monster? A demon? Well, yes, he's a demon, we know that, but has he always been a demon? And where did he get the amulet from? So many questions just straight off the bat. But to understand this, we gotta go way back. And I mean way back to the beginning of time, in Adventure Time. In the iconic Lich's Gold Star monologue, we know that before anything, there was nothing. And before nothing, there were monsters. Primordial beings, as they call them. And you can see the monsters like Orgolot chilling over here. But most importantly, some theorize that Hunson, or at least the demon that he transforms into with the amulet on, is one of the monsters right here. What's interesting is that we see 3 people wear the amulet before. Hunson Abadeer himself, Marceline, and Finn. And when the amulet is worn, the chaotic evil from the amulet takes over them, along with a fancy looking suit by the way, and transforms them into this monster that Hunson turns into. But for Marceline and Hunson's monster, they seem to look almost identical to each other. But for Finn, however, he loses himself entirely and turns into a monster that looks really different from Hunson and Marceline's monster. But we can only assume that it's because Finn is a human, right? While Marceline's half demon, so she can kind of control it better. But nonetheless, Marceline couldn't even control it entirely either. She still went crazy and just wasn't herself when Hunson tricked her into ruling the NIGHTOSPHERE. It's really interesting because it shows that Hunson Abadeer is the only one who's able to completely control himself under the effects of the amulet. He can freely switch between forms and still remain his regular chill dude with a personality, you know, a deadbeat father. Perhaps the reason behind the ability to control himself so well is that he has the amulet for a long time now. Since, in fact, when he saw Marceline filled with chaotic evil, he says, "That's how I grew up," meaning that he did grow up the same way, trying to control his powers of the amulet and not let it fully control him. Maybe this is the same concept where Simon became Ice King, where he wore a crown for so long that he already lost himself and thinks he's normal. Maybe there's way more to Hunson Abadeer than we do know. And also, we gotta remember that he gave birth to Marceline with a human. We don't know the relationship between Marceline's mom and dad at all. We don't know how they met, where they met, when they met, we don't know. We got to see old pictures in Hunson's mansion showing him and Marceline as a baby, but that's all we got. We also get to see Marceline's backstory with her mom, but anything between Hunson and Marceline's mom, we've never got to see. And what about the Abadeer name and its so-called family business? Although we know that both him and Marceline are very old, like thousands and thousands of years old, I'm talking like a real long time. They've been here through the Mushroom Wars and everything. The way he talks about the NIGHTOSPHERE as a family business is like a family heritage thing where the amulet is passed down to generations. So there's a chance that he isn't the first Abadeer to run things down there. And maybe the amulet does not have anything to do with him at all. Maybe it's just something passed down to him by his parents and his grandparents and so on and so forth. But we can only really theorize this. We have separate shows talking about Fiona and Cake and about Simon. But I really hope that the writers consider making a separate show showing the characters of Hunson Abadeer, or at least give us more of an explanation, because this character is no side character. He's actually one of the most strongest creatures, and he's up there when it comes to evil, in comparison to people like the Lich. Well, speaking of the Lich, we actually have proof that these two evil beings know of each other. In the official Adventure Time encyclopedia, which is written from the perspective of Hunson Abadeer, by the way, there's the page of him talking to the Lich saying that the only thing I abhor more than being better than myself is a being worse than myself. And we can read that both him and the Lich has similar goals of invading the world of Wu, or maybe the entire world, so that's pretty cool. But really, we don't really know much about Hunson Abadeer other than what we've seen. If you have any idea or something perhaps I've missed out in the series that you've seen, you can comment down below and let everyone know, because this has been a question for a long time, and we still don't really have a real answer to this of who Hunson Abadeer truly is. So that's pretty much all I can say about him. So if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and tell me if there's any other video ideas you guys want. I'm still trying to experiment with this commentary thing, so if you have any suggestions for me, any critics for me, it would be greatly appreciated. I love y'all. Peace.